Hi, this is Kevin Annett. It's July 4th, 2013. And this picture is extremely important and historic because it shows positive proof that the Indian residential school genocide was deliberate. These are children at the Sarsi Reserve School in 1912, and they, according to the book, they are suffering from tuberculosis, open tubercular sores, sitting sick among the healthy. This was one of the primary means by which genocide was spread among Aboriginal people. Now, I have with me today Nadine Buse, who married into the Sarsi band, and she knows personally about this situation. Hi, Nadine.
Hi, Kevin.
Do you want to tell us about the kids in this picture?
Yes, Kevin, this is a picture of the newly built Sarsi Indian residential school on the Sarsi Reserve in 1912. Reverend Timms was the Anglican minister who built this school, and this is his daughter. I do believe her name was Judith Timms. She was the school mistress. These are his students, and they range in age from probably the youngest here would be Reggie Starlight, this little guy here, and he has a scarf around his head. He has infected tubular glands. Till the older kids here, this is his brother Bernie Starlight, who's 12, and he's about 8. So they're in around that age. And the older boys here. It's one classroom.
And that boy with the other boy with the scarf?
This is, okay, this is Reggie Starlight. No, Bernie Starlight. No, pardon me, Reggie Starlight. This little boy is Billy Big Plume. These two boys are the sons of chiefs, minor chiefs. This is the son of James Starlight. He's the second oldest son, and he is the son of Joe Big Plume.
Now, you say that two children here who are suffering from open tubercular sores are both the sons of chiefs.
Yes, sir, they are.
Now, why is that, do you think?
Well, I do believe it was an environment of bacterial genocide, a mentality that prevailed during those days. Now, you see that these boys are highly infected, and these people knew that this was highly infectious because at the very same time, in Calgary, outside of Calgary, there's a beautiful resort town called Banff. This disease actually backfired within the local community because these people were giving infected Hudson's Bay blanket coats. His mother had one, and that's probably, she died shortly after him, and he picked it up first. And here's his old brother. He got it 6 months, a year later, he died. The infected Hudson's Bay blanket carried the tuberculin bacteria, but it backfired because these people didn't need Hudson Bay blankets. They had furs and hides, so they traded them with the settlers in Calgary. And it backfired, the disease, and it spread throughout Calgary, and they built a beautiful big sanatorium in Banff for the white folks.
Can you tell me the fate of these children?
He died, this is in the spring, he died a few months later. They both died, this is probably about March, he died in the summer of 1912. It was just a few months later, they didn't last much longer than this. He died, his older brother Bernie, he died a year later. He contracted. I do believe he's probably infected now and just not feeling too well. These are farther along.
So you were saying the Starlight family were targeted because they were chiefs. You said recently they've attempted to wipe out the memory and the records of the Starlight family?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not recently. They've been at it for about 30, 40 years. What they did, okay, the eradication of the Starlight family. You got to understand who the Starlights are. You got to understand who the Sarsi are. The Sarsi are not Tsuut'ina. They're not a homogenized hybrid Indian band that the contemporary version demonstrates, which is a hybrid of mostly Blackfoot, Stoney Cree, and just a smattering of Sarsi. However, it was a Sarsi who had the inherent right to a separate, distinct land base under treaty because they're a distinct breed of Indians, separate and distinct from the Blackfoot or Stoney.
We're talking, just for the listeners, we're talking in Western Canada, the province of Alberta.
Yes, sir.
Southern
Treaty
Alberta.
7.
Yes.
All Treaty 7. Reverend Timms was sent over from the Anglican...
Now Timms, again, is the Anglican minister who came, and that's his daughter right there,
That's his
correct?
daughter. He was the Anglican minister who was put in charge of all of the 4 Treaty 7 big, huge reserves at the time. Over 20, 30,000 Indians' lives he ruled.
Do you know anything about this Samuel Timms?
Yes, I know all about Samuel Timms. I know where he was from, how he lived, what he did, some of the good and a lot of the bad. Reverend Timms came to Alberta from England. He was seconded by the federal government, Department of Indian Affairs, through the Catholic, Anglican Church to basically convert these heathens. And that was his very words. And that was his mission in life, to bring these people to God. He was not a nice man. He was a pedophile, and needless to say, they shipped these pedophiles out west because they didn't want them contaminating their nice little British kids, right? So he did his business freely and had free reign for over 50 years. He governed these people and ruled them like a ruthless dictator. And he caused a lot of damage, which we are dealing with today.
So do you believe that this picture indicates clear intent to commit genocide in Canada in the residential schools?
Well, looks like it. I wouldn't put infected kids with other kids when I have a separate sanatorium in the foothills of Banff for my white folks. They knew quite well what would happen when they cross-contaminated these kids, or why would they build a sanitarium? Their dad was the hereditary chief, James Starlight. His dad was a hereditary Blackfoot chief. See, these guys are mostly all Blackfoots. Only a few true Sarcee. Right. Very, very few.
This Dr. Hayes, he wouldn't be related to this Senator Hayes I mentioned, would he?
He was the father of Senator Hayes, Harry Hayes. Harry was born, at this time, Harry was a 2-year-old, same age as his little sister, Ruby. So Ruby Starlight and Harry Hayes grew up together.
And what's significant about, just for people who might not know Canadian politics, Harry Hayes was actually a minister in the Pearson government.
Yes, Senator Hayes was Minister of Agriculture under Lester Pearson, and he was appointed as a senator under Trudeau. And he worked with Trudeau worked with Senator Hayes, and Senator Hayes co-chaired the Joint House of Commons Senate Committee to repatriate the Constitution with the then Minister of Justice Jean Chrétien, and then eventually Serge Joyal. When I was Senator Hayes' accountant at the time, and he used to come back from Ottawa, tell me olden day stories about how hard it was to repatriate the Constitution. One day he came and said, "Well, Nadine, one of these days you're going to be equal to us, boys." He explained to me about the implementation of the equality provision, and I asked him the significance of it. And then he disclosed to me some very privileged information. And at that time, I had become pregnant by it would be their nephew, the Starlight, Fred. And Senator Hayes told me, he says, "Well, I happen to know the family of the baby daddy." And he explained to me how when he was a young boy, his father, Dr. Thomas Hayes, would take him to the reserve to look at the animals, and he grew up with little Ruby Starlight, the chief's daughter, the same age, and that he was aware that she suffered discrimination under the Indian Act, lost her band membership and her status, and was living in poverty, while his son, Dan Hayes, was a successful lawyer. He saw the inequality of white men taking the Indian land and doing nasty things to them through the church.
Did you say at some point that he referred to these phases of genocide?
Oh, yes. He explained to me, basically told me how it's done. He explained to me about buffalo genocide, and his dad knew about it because they were old buffalo hunters, and they probably got paid to do it, right? And I bet, I don't know.
What's the buffalo genocide?
Well, basically we killed off the buffalo because we killed off the food supply. It's environmental genocide. You kill off their environment. First is buffalo genocide. There's 4 forms of genocide. First, we started out with environmental genocide, kill the buffalo, get rid of the Indians. That worked for a while, but it became socially unacceptable, and they all disappeared. Then we did bacterial genocide, give them infected blankets.
Like in the picture here.
Exactly. They got the infected Hudson's Bay. I mean, they did it down east with the chicken pox and the smallpox. It works every time. So they gave them the infected blankets. That was the bacterial genocide. Well, it backfired, and they got it backfired on them. So then we did legislated genocide. It created the Indian Act. Well, we'll legislate them out of extinction, and we'll legislate the breeders, the women, right? So we had discrimination against the women.
Women losing their status when they married out. Yes.
Anybody, you actually basically had to inbreed to keep your status. If you bred outside of the band, whether you bred with another man from another band, you ceased to be a member of your band and became a member of his band. If you married a non-Indian, you became a non-Indian. However, an Indian man could marry a white woman, and she would have full status. For example, their sister, Ruby Starlight, And their brother, James Starlight, who survived this epidemic, had the first joint Christian double wedding, where James Starlight married a white woman who gained full status, and she lost hers.
That's the third kind. What's the fourth kind of genocide?
Well, the fourth kind is the current contemporary form, and this is called, I know, and I have an abundance of evidence of it, it's called, which I labeled, I called it because I had lack of any other word, but basically Senator Hayes taught me it was called genocide through corporate corruption. And what they do is they basically make any service or benefit remotely impossible through creating organizations such as the Native Council of Canada, or what's now commonly called the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, which is just basically an organization full of what we call potato Indians, brown on the outside, white on the inside, or fried bread Indians, you know, brown and greasy on the outside and white on the inside. Sorry, but that's the truth. That's what they call them themselves. I learned it from them. Sorry.
So it's the corporate aspect that's going on
now.
Well,
the corporate corruption is basically, it's the same system that we do for everybody. There is nothing. You know, you don't make things accessible to them. Filibuster, delay, you know, make it confusing. Anything.
They have a certain quota of people that have to get off the reserve, cutting people out of housing and services.
It's called assimilation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and through kind of an attrition, you know, finally, hopefully forget who they are, don't come back, right, if you get work, you know, type of thing. So, but most of the Sarcees now, they've reinvented themselves. They call them Zutina. It's been proven through Liza Churchill's report, her dissertation, that she definitely said they've reinvented themselves in a hybrid band.
So, just in closing, this is how you see the genocide continuing today?
Absolutely.
Do you think there's going to be any end to it?
Well, no. Corporate corruption is successful, whether it's a hedge fund or a corrupt Native organization. It keeps it meets the government agenda, meets their purpose. It's clean, it's nice, it's tidy. Nobody complains. You know, stimulates the economy. You spend taxpayers' dollars, meets everybody's needs. It looks like you got an organization for political representativity. Everybody's happy, but it's ineffective. Yeah. You understand?
Thanks, Nadine. We'll be actually going to be publishing more of the evidence you're going to be giving me in the ITCCS soon.
Absolutely. Everything I have is for your disposal, and I will dispose. But I will, Kevin, I'll do my best. I'll give you everything. I'll do my very, very best, my heart and soul.
Thank you, Nadine.